All right, thank you everyone for being here. My name is Carrie Talbot. I'm the Director of Litigation and Advocacy at Legal Assistance of Western New York. I do want to thank Law Help New York, who's co-hosting today's presentation. We are really excited to have you all here today to hear from Amalia Berry, who is one of our EdCap student loan counselors. So Amalia is going to be covering sort of student loans A to Z, the basics. So we're really excited to have her. Student loans are very complicated and can be really overwhelming, especially with all of the changes that have been happening recently. So we do hope that we can provide some helpful information to folks. A couple of housekeeping things. We do have the Q&A feature enabled. So at the bottom of your screen, you have an option, not the chat feature, but the one that says Q&A. It's a box with a question mark. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type your questions in there. If we have time, we will get to them at the end, but you can put questions in throughout the presentation as Amalia is talking. And then this is just a reminder that we cannot give legal advice as part of this presentation. And this presentation is open to the public, so be careful about not sharing any personal information that you wouldn't want out in the world. So we will also have a list of additional resources as well as Amalia's contact information at the end. So if you do have specific questions that you don't feel comfortable asking here, or if we don't get to your question, you can feel free to reach out to us afterwards. So Amalia, I think I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome, thank you. So today we'll be going over empowering your future, managing student loan debt. So the agenda for today, first we'll go over what Law New York and EdCap are, different strategies for tackling federal student loan debt, different repayment options, which we will be connecting to the different strategies, the current legal challenges to income-driven repayment plans. We'll explore different forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge programs. We'll go over the Fresh Start program. And then at the end, we'll have 2 slides about private student loans specifically. And at the very end, we'll have different additional resources and links, and we'll be sending this presentation out to everyone who registered, so you'll have access to all those links at the end. So about EdCap, Legal Assistance of Western New York is a member of the EdCap network. EdCap stands for the Education Debt Consumer Assistance Program, and it's a program from the Community Service Society. It was created to help tackle the student debt crisis that we are currently in New York State. So through our helpline, we provide a bunch of different services. The first and probably most common one that we assist with is we can help people determine their best student loan repayment options, help people access different loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge programs, apply for consolidation, which is consolidation is combining your loans, your federal loans together, deferment and forbearance. Deferment and forbearance are times where you are not required to make payments on your loans. We can act as advocates to resolve issues with loan servicers, lenders, and the Department of Education. We can assist people with getting out of default in order to prevent wage garnishments, social security offsets, and tax intersets, and help people understand their financial aid offers before they go to college, so they can go to college with less debt after. So some key terms that are going to be very important to help you understand what's going on in this presentation are federal student loans firstly. So as I said, this whole presentation is going to be regarding federal student loans. And these are loans made by the federal government with terms and conditions that are set by law, and they include many different benefits that we'll go over. Private student loans will be at the very end. These are loans that are made by private organizations such as banks, credit unions, and state-based organizations, and these have terms and conditions that are set by the lender. Forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge all mean the same thing, but they're different programs that mean you are no longer required to pay either some or all of your federal student loans. Income-driven repayment plan, or IDR plan. This is a plan that bases your federal student loan payment amount on your income and family size. And the traditional repayment plan is a monthly payment for federal student loans that's based on the loan balance, interest rate, and a predetermined payback period. The on-ramp. So we are currently in the on-ramp right now. The on-ramp started in September of 2023, right after the COVID forbearance ended. And it's a grace period during which federal borrowers can elect to skip payments without major financial repercussions. So during this year, no late fees will be incurred on your federal student loans. Missed payments will not be reported to credit agencies. There is no risk of going into default. However, the downsides of the on-ramp are missed payments will not count towards forgiveness, and also interest continues to accrue on your loans during this year. And this option ends right around the corner on September 30th, 2024, although that potentially could be subject to change. Now we'll go over different federal student loan strategies. So the three different strategies we're talking about today, the first one is to pay debt in full as quickly as possible. The second is to pay the minimum required and pursue forgiveness if you are eligible. And the third is to pay the minimum required until death do you part, the most morbid one. So the first option is to pay debt in full as quickly as possible. This strategy is best for borrowers with either low loan balances or high income relative to their loan balance. So to partake in this strategy, you could make either lump sum payments on your loans or pay more than the required amount regardless of the payment plan. So this is best for people who want to aggressively tackle their student loan debt, and they can afford to do so. They can afford to make more payments than they're required to get their loan balance down. And this is great for some people because it results in less interest accruing on your loan because you're paying more of it off more quickly. And then that means you will end up paying back less because less interest is accruing on your loan. The second option is to pay the minimum required and pursue forgiveness if you are eligible. So this strategy is best for borrowers with high loan balances or low to moderate income compared to their debt. And in this plan, you are making the minimum required payment, typically in an income-driven repayment plan, until a person becomes eligible for forgiveness at the very end. And compared to the first strategy, making extra payments is generally not recommended because you're expecting to receive forgiveness at the end. So the remainder of your loan balance will be forgiven at the end. So just pay the bare amount required until you're eligible for that. And if you cannot afford your payment, even if you're in an income-driven repayment plan, please contact us. And then the final option is pay the minimum required until death do you part. So for some people with really big loan balances, pursuing forgiveness might not be an option. Consider paying the minimum required amount until you pass away. So federal student loans are dischargeable upon death. This means that if a person passes away, their federal debt does not pass to the estate, meaning a person's family is never on the hook for paying for their federal student loan debt. And this strategy typically works best for older borrowers who realistically will not be able to repay their loans or get forgiveness. And if you can't afford to make your minimum payment, even in an income-driven repayment plan, you can request a temporary forbearance or deferment. However, they're temporary and there's a limited amount. You cannot be in a forbearance or a deferment for the whole life of your loan. Now we'll go over the different repayment options. So there's two options to pay back your federal student loans. The first one are the traditional repayment plans, and these are the standard, extended, and graduated plans. So as I said in the key terms, these are based on the loan balance, interest rate, and a predetermined payback period. Compared to income-driven repayment plans, so currently the plans are the Saving on Available Education Plan, or SAVE, the Pay-as-you-earn plan, PAYE, income-based repayment, or IBR, or income contingent repayment, ICR. And these are different because they are based on your income and family size. And due to the current legislation that we'll be discussing in a few slides, SAVE, PAYE, and ICR have limited availability current, and the income-driven repayment plan options are subject to change depending on the outcome of the current litigation. So traditional repayment plans, these work best for the pay debt in full as quickly as possible repayment strategy that we discussed. So the pros of these are they have more predictable payback periods, the shorter repayment period in some cases, so you are potentially paying off your loans faster. You don't have to recertify or verify your income annually. And again, these are best suited for those with high income. These are people who can afford to make bigger payments on their loans and tackle their debt. The cons of these are the higher monthly payments typically, and that can be challenging for those with limited income, limited flexibility in adjusting payments, because again, it's a set payment schedule. And for these plans, there is no forgiveness. You will be paying off your whole loan balance under the traditional repayment plans. So income-driven repayment plans work best for the pay the minimum required and pursue forgiveness or until death do you part strategies. So these are supposed to be affordable payments based on your income and family size. Under these plans, you can receive forgiveness after 10 to 25 years of payments. These are required for forgiveness programs. You can adjust payments when income changes. So for example, if someone were to lose their job and they currently have no income, they can adjust their income-driven repayment plan for their current lower income. And these are best suited for those with high debt balances and low to moderate income, or people who are pursuing certain forgiveness programs. The cons of these are the annual renewal and income verification required. However, that has gotten easier because last summer, the Department of Education introduced something where you can authorize the IRS to share your tax information with the Department of Education, so your plan will be renewed automatically and you won't have to reapply every year if you authorize that. Another con is the potential interest accumulation over the extended repayment period. So because you are making your minimum monthly payment and you're not paying off your loans, interest will accrue faster. And because of the interest accumulation, there's a longer repayment period, so that extends your time to become debt-free. So now we'll go over the legal challenges to the Saving on a Valuable Education Plan. So the Saving on a Valuable Education Plan was introduced last summer by the Biden-Harris administration, and it replaced the revised pay-as-you-earn plan. It was supposed to be the most affordable repayment plan for lower income borrowers, and it had some great benefits. So in this plan, any single person who made under $30,000 was eligible for a $0 monthly payment. It had an accelerated path to forgiveness. So a lot of great things for lower income borrowers. However, in July of 2024, courts blocked borrowers from enrolling in the SAVE plan or offering forgiveness through that plan. So we do not know when this is going to be resolved. This could be months or even longer. Borrowers who were currently enrolled in SAVE, so the people who were enrolled in SAVE before the courts blocked it, were placed in a non-interest-bearing forbearance. This means that in this forbearance, interest will not accrue on your loans. However, the downside of this forbearance is that time spent in this forbearance does not qualify for forgiveness. SAVE applications won't be processed until legal issues are resolved. And while this lawsuit is pending, online income-driven repayment applications and loan consolidation applications are not available. So borrowers can submit paper applications for any income-driven repayment plan. However, the paper applications are not currently being processed due to the litigation, so people can expect very long delays in the processing of these income-driven repayment plan requests. So this impacts other IDR plans. So it's going to impact what's going to be available in the future, treatment of credit for forgiveness, and then again, what plans are going to be available later. So navigating the current environment. So this has introduced a lot of uncertainty into the system because a lot of people were enrolled in the SAVE plan, making their affordable minimum monthly payments. And now it's held up in court. They're in a forbearance. So it's a lot of uncertainty. So be cautious, and it's advised to seek advice before doing anything complicated, such as consolidation, because we're in sort of strange times right now. And also, it's really important to stay updated about the SAVE lawsuit and changes in processing of applications. So for updates, you can visit the save.gov website, which again, will be sending out these links at the end for you to check out. Now we'll explore different federal forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge options. So these all fit under the pay the minimum amount required and pursue forgiveness strategy because you're trying to get your loans forgiven at the end. So the first and most common one is income-driven repayment forgiveness. So anyone with direct federal loans in an income-driven repayment plan is eligible for IDRF, and this forgives your remaining loan balance after making payments for 20 years for undergrad loans or 25 years for graduate loans. And there is no requirement for this. So going forward, you have to be enrolled in an IDR plan for payments to count towards income-driven repayment forgiveness. And there was a one-time account adjustment in 2024 that gave people additional credit towards IDRF, and that's called the IDR account adjustment. So if you've been seeing everyone in the news who's been getting their loans forgiven over the past year, that was mostly due to the IDR account adjustment, which got a lot of people with older loans closer to eliminating their federal debt. So this gives people credit towards public service loan forgiveness or IDRF, even if no payments were made or you were not enrolled in an IDR plan. So people will get credit for any time, well, before July 2024, they'll get credit for periods in repayment. So if you were in an IDR plan and not making any payments, you're going to get credit. If you were in the standard plan, not making payments or making payments in the standard plan in the past, you're going to get credit. Time spent in forbearance of 12 consecutive or 36 cumulative months, most deferments prior to 2013, and economic hardship deferments from 2013 or later, and also months prior to loan consolidation. So borrowers with direct loans or ed-held FFEL loans will get this benefit automatically, and they would not have to do anything to get their qualifying payment credit. It's the Department of Education is scanning through people's loans and giving them credit. However, people with older loans, maybe like commercially held FFELP loans or loans Perkins loans, they would have needed to consolidate their loans to get the benefit of the IDR account adjustment. So the IDR forgiveness trackers will be available on the, or should be available on your FSA account later this year. And basically that is where you'll be able, on your federal student aid account, you'll be able to see the exact amount of qualifying payments you are until you receive forgiveness. So that's going to be very helpful to let people know when they can expect their loans to be forgiven. And then once payment trackers do become available, hopefully later this year, if you didn't receive credit and you think you maybe should have, please contact our office. So public service loan forgiveness, I myself am working towards public service loan forgiveness, and this is where you need to work an average of at least 30 hours per week for a qualifying nonprofit or government employer. So this is different than IDRF because it has that employment requirement, but it's in sort of a quicker path to forgiveness because compared to 20 or 25 years, your loans are forgiven after 10 years, which equals 120 qualifying payments. So all IDR plans count, and also the 10-year standard plan does count. However, you would need to get out of the 10-year standard plan at some point. Otherwise, you would end up paying off your loans in the 10-year standard plan. So MOHELA used to service, MOHELA is a federal student loan servicer, and they used to service the PSLF. However, starting July of 2024, borrowers should contact the Department of Education directly regarding their public service loan forgiveness, regardless of who your servicer is. So these trackers are now available on the FSA website. So it's very similar to the IDRF tracker. It just basically has 120, and let's say someone has 60 qualifying payments, they can see that they have those 60 qualifying payments. They can see which months they have those qualifying payments from, and they can see that they need to make 60 more qualifying payments before they're eligible to get the remainder of their loan balance forgiven. And these are currently available on the Federal Student Aid website, and you can see it under quick links. And we recommend, so public service loan forgiveness is not automatic. You need to apply and either have your employer certify your employment or submit a W-2 document from every year that you worked there. And you need to apply on studentaid.gov. However, you can also expect processing delays for public service loan forgiveness applications because they were paused during the summer, so there might be a backlog. So could definitely take some time to get your applications processed. And we recommend that people apply annually or whenever they leave an employer. Total and permanent disability discharge. So this is a type of discharge that allows borrowers to discharge their remaining balance if they are disabled. So in order to be eligible for this, you have to show that you have a disability that prevents you from engaging in substantial gainful activity. This basically means you can't work and earn enough to support yourself. Therefore, you are going to be unable to work enough to pay back your federal student loans. So some people will get this automatic. However, others can submit an application that shows you are disabled. So there's 3 ways you can show you are disabled for TPD purposes. The first way is if you're a veteran, it'll be automatic through the VA's office. The second way is if you receive Social Security disability with a review period of at least 3 years, and that could potentially be automatic. But if you are on Social Security disability and you have federal student loans and you have a copy of your award letter, you can submit it with your application, and that's how you would show that you're disabled for SSD purposes. And the third and most common way that I've done for most of my clients is you have a medical professional certify your disability. So this medical professional can be a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant, or a certified psychologist at the independent practice level. So they have to sign the TPD application and sort of explain your disability that causes you to be unable to work, sign it, and then you could submit that to show that your medical professional believes that you're disabled enough to not be able to pay back your federal loans in the future. And the final one is borrower defense to repayment, or BDR. So in order to be eligible for this, you must have attended in school and a school that engaged in misconduct, and you must have taken out federal loans to attend that school. So this is not just for someone who maybe didn't like their school, had a bad professor or a bad experience with the school. This school must have defrauded or misled the borrower and caused harm. So there's many ways that typically for-profit schools could have done this, but some of the more common ways are they could have lied or misled someone to believe that they had a promised job right after they graduate, and the person graduates and they don't have the job that the school promised them. Promised someone that they were gonna be getting a degree, so a bachelor's or an associate's degree, but then the person completes their schooling and find out that they only get a certificate. Or sometimes they engage in aggressive or deceptive recruitment. So they're calling you all the time. You say, please don't call me. I don't want to go to the school. They continue calling you, harassing you to get you to enroll. So similar to TPD, for some specific schools, BDR can be automatic. However, for others, and if you believe you are defrauded or misled by your school, you can submit an application to show eligibility. And it's typically recommended that you provide sort of evidence that your school defrauded or misled you. And you can visit studentaid.gov for a full list of the schools that are on the list, and also to find out how to submit the best application possible. So some other smaller, less common forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge programs are, firstly, the New York State Get on Your Feet Loan Forgiveness Program. So this is for individuals who earned an undergraduate degree from a college or university in New York and are currently living in New York State. It provides up to 24 months of loan payments for eligible participants, and you can learn more there. Teacher loan forgiveness. So this is for teachers. However, you must teach in a designated subject area or a shortage area for 5 consecutive years. And this only forgives up to $17,000 in federal student loans. So we typically caution people against teacher loan forgiveness because time used to qualify for TLF does not count towards public service loan forgiveness. So if someone has under $17,000 in loans, this could be a great option, and they qualify, so they're working in the correct area and teaching the correct subject. This can be a great option because you can get your loans forgiven in those 5 years. However, if you have over $17,000 in loans, if you time used for this does not count towards the 10 years for public service loan forgiveness. So if you get teacher loan forgiveness, you would have to work an additional 10 years after those 5 years to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. So if you have a high loan balance, please contact us because public service loan forgiveness might be the best option. School closure discharge. So this is granted to borrowers whose schools closed while they were enrolled or shortly after they withdrew, and these borrowers could not have completed teach outs or comparable programs elsewhere. And bankruptcy. So bankruptcy should be a last resort for federal student loans. While it is possible to discharge federal student loans in bankruptcy, you have to meet a certain criteria. So you have to meet something called the undue hardship test, and it can be very difficult to meet this test. However, due to recent change in rules, it is becoming easier to discharge federal student loans in bankruptcy. However, it is recommended to seek the advice of an experienced bankruptcy attorney who specializes in student loan discharge cases to ask about discharging your loans under bankruptcy. And then the until death do you part strategy again, federal student loans are discharged upon death. So again, that means your family is going to not be required to pay your federal student loan debts if you pass away. So Fresh Start for defaulted federal student loans. So the Fresh Start Initiative is a great program for people to get their defaulted federal loans back into good standing and repair their credit through the Fresh Start Initiative. So this is not automatic and you must apply to get this benefit. So if you're continuing your education, you can file the FAFSA and enroll in school at least half-time. Your loans will be transferred to a non-default servicer, and the negative default history will be removed from your credit report. And if you're not going back to school, you need to contact your debt collector. In most cases, this is going to be the default resolution group. That's the Department of Education's default servicer. Your loans will be transferred to a non-default servicer, and you must enroll in a repayment plan after, which default history will be removed from your credit reports. So I've done this with some clients. It's a really easy 5 to 10 minute phone call, and it gets your loans into good standing and they're transferred. And this is a really important deadline coming up right around the corner. If your loans are in default, you really should apply for the Fresh Start before the Fresh Start period ends on September 30th, 2024. It's not good to have your loans in default. The federal government does not have to sue you to collect on your loans. They can garnish you, take your taxes, they can take your Social Security to collect on the federal debt compared to a private creditor. And if you do use Fresh Start to get out of default, you will automatically get the benefit of the IDR account adjustment. So you will receive credit towards forgiveness for all of COVID. So the payment pause was from March 30th, 2020 to September of 2023. So that is 3 years of credit that normally people in default would not have gotten if you enroll in the Fresh Start initiative. So that September 30th deadline is very, very important. And some keep in mind, so everything we have discussed so far only applies to federal student loans. There are a variety of different forgiveness and discharge programs that you may be eligible for. There are different repayment plans depending on how quickly you want to pay off your loans, what strategy you want to use to pay off your loans, and what you can afford to pay for your monthly payment. Stay up to date at ed.gov/save for the court action, because that's going to impact repayment plans in the future. If your loans are in default, apply for a fresh start before September 30th, 2024. And then also on September 30th, 2024 is when the on-ramp period ends. And people are going to need to make sure that they're making their minimum monthly payments or they are in a deferment or forbearance of some sort, so they don't go into default. And now we'll discuss private loans. So private loans are loans that are offered by banks, credit unions, and private institutions, and these must be repaid according to terms. So private student loans are actually more similar to credit card debt or automobile debt compared to than federal student loans. So credit checks are required for these, and most students must obtain cosigners because A lot of people who are going to college are 18 years old. They have no credit history. They can't, so they're not going to be eligible to take out these huge loans. So they might obtain a cosigner. This is usually parents or grandparents, but it can be any adult in their life who qualifies and is willing to cosign for them. And cosigners are 100% liable for the loan if the primary borrower defaults. So, and it can be very difficult to get the cosigner released. So this means that if the student graduates, they have to pay on their private student loans. If they can't afford it and their loans go into default, the lender can sue both the primary borrower and the cosigner and collect. And interest rates are determined by prevailing market conditions and the creditworthiness of the applicants. So, and most of these, they don't have fixed interest rates, they're variable, so they can go up and down. Private student loans should always be the last resort for funding. They have none of the benefits that we discussed earlier, such as income-driven repayment plans or forbearance or forgiveness. So it is best to avoid private loans altogether. They should really be a very last option. However, there are some options if you do have private loans. So you can reach out to your lender and ask for voluntary repayment options. So again, they don't offer payments based on income or forgiveness. However, if you reach out to your lender and you're struggling to make payments, you describe your situation, they may offer a temporary lower monthly payment, but they are not required to. If they do it, it's just because they want to. You can refinance, so you can refinance your loans into better terms, potentially better terms with a different lender. However, if you do want to refinance, you're going to want to read what you're signing because you're going to be signing a new agreement with a different lender. So you want to make sure that that's better than what you're currently in. Bankruptcy, private loans can potentially be discharged in bankruptcy. And then sort of the final option is if you cannot afford to make your payment, your loan's going to default and you're maybe sued, you can negotiate a settlement with the lender or try to negotiate a settlement with the lender or the third-party creditor. These are private debts. They are subject to the statute of limitations of your state. And again, maybe the third-party creditor might be more willing to negotiate than the original lender. So that's always an option. And then here are the additional resources and links. So firstly, we just have the federal student debt overview. So what are direct loans, subsidized versus unsubsidized loans? Loan repayment plans, so the traditional repayment plan options or IDR plan options. Again, you can't currently apply for the IDR plan online. That link is there. The links for IDR forgiveness, public service loan forgiveness information, the PSLF help tool, that is where you will apply for public service loan forgiveness right online, the TLF link, the BDR link, and the TPD link. Relevant links that are just discussing what more information about specific types of forbearance, deferments, and information about consolidation. Student loan servicers help you find out who your servicer is, and then just some forms you can check out if you're interested. And then always a helpful link about Fresh Start, which is available again until September 30th, 2024. And then here is our contact information. So please, if you have any questions at all, specific questions about your loans or your situation, please reach out to us.
Thanks, Amalia. All right, so we've got a couple of questions in the chat. So I guess the first one is, I answered this in the chat, but I want to give you a chance if there's anything you want to add. So the question is, what determines when you are eligible for forgiveness if you're pursuing the pay the minimum and pursue forgiveness strategy?
Well, you would have to make the monthly payments required for the amount of years required. So if you have undergraduate loans, you would need to have been making qualifying payments for 20 years. After those 20 years, whatever is remaining on your loan balance is forgiven.
And that's for the income-driven repayment forgiveness.
Yes, and then for public service loan forgiveness, it's the 10 years of making qualifying payments, but also the employment requirement as well for the 10 years for that one.
Excellent. Okay. And then Are there other IDR plans that are in an interest-free forbearance, or is it just Save that has the interest-free forbearance right now?
Only Save has the interest-free forbearance currently.
Okay. How do you know if your loans are private or federal?
So if your loans are federal, you will be able to see them in your federal student aid account. If your loans are private, you would have a separate account with whoever your lender is. But the studentaid.gov website has all information about any federal loan that is connected to your social security number.
So maybe this is a related question then. So you mentioned different types of federal loans, like direct loans and other ones. How do I know if my loans are a direct loan or some other type of federal loan?
Yep, that would also be in the studentaid.gov account. It would show you each of your individual loans, the individual loan amount, and the loan type, and the interest rate as well.
Okay. I think you may have answered this question indirectly a minute ago, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If your loan is in deferment because you're not currently employed, is that currently accruing interest?
It depends on the deferment. I would recommend you reach out specifically and ask us so we can take a look at that together.
Great. And I haven't paid my student loans in years because of COVID. When do I need to start repaying them?
Yeah, so a lot of people have not been paying on their loans since March of 2020. So people will need to make sure that they are making their monthly payments after September 30th, 2024, or they are in a forbearance or a deferment if they can't afford their monthly payment. So payments are going to be required next month.
And I'm trying to do public service loan forgiveness. How do I know if my employer qualifies?
So to find out if your employer qualifies, you would need to get the employer identification number or EIN from either HR or your W-2, and then you would search that in the PSLF help tool, which is on your studentaid.gov account, and you'd be able to see, and they'll let you know. It'll be green if it's qualifying, red if it's not qualifying.
Okay. So starting next month, if we are currently in the Save forbearance because of the litigation, what is your payment going to be in October?
If you are in the Save forbearance, your payment will be zero, because in a forbearance, you are not required to make monthly payments on your loans. However, that month will not count towards different forgiveness programs such as public service loan forgiveness or income-driven repayment forgiveness, but your loan will remain in good standing and no interest will be accruing on the balance.
Okay. And my parents took out Parent Plus loans to help me pay for school. Am I responsible for paying those loans back?
The parents are required to pay back those loans because they're those loans that they took out under their social security number. However, if you're feeling like a nice kid, you could maybe help them out. But they are the ones who are required to pay it.
Okay. And we have a clarifying question about the payment restarting in October. So the on-ramp is ending on September 30th, payments are restarting. Is this going to apply to people in the Save forbearance?
No, this does not apply to people in the Save forbearance, because in a forbearance, you are not required to make payments. So even if someone was in a different type of forbearance, they are not required to make forbearance to make a payment in the forbearance. Mhm.
Okay, got it. So the on-ramp is ending for everyone, but people who are in a forbearance are going to continue to have a $0 payment.
Yes, exactly.
Starting October 1st. All right, great.
Yeah, and we don't have a date for when the Save forbearance will be ending yet. So, but your loan servicer should let you know.
Great. Okay. If my income goes down, do I have to wait for my yearly recertification to change my payments, or can I do something to lower my payments right away?
So in normal times when income-driven repayment applications are available, you would be able to immediately reapply based on your new lower income. However, now you may have to contact your servicer and request a forbearance or a deferment because you can't apply for a plan. But in the future, you should be able to immediately recertify your income based on your new lower amount.
Okay. And if I get loan forgiveness through income-driven repayment forgiveness or public service loan forgiveness, do I have to pay taxes on the loans that are forgiven?
Yeah, so due to the American Rescue Plan Act, which started on January 1st, 2024, you do not have to pay federal taxes. So it started January 1st, 2024, and it ends December 31st, 2025. So any loans that are forgiven during that time period, you do not have to pay federal taxes on. However, for state taxes, you should be consulting a tax expert to find that out.
Okay. And for loans that are forgiven after December 31st, 2025, like if someone's 2 years into an income-driven repayment forgiveness plan, they have 18 years left. What would we tell them about taxes?
Those would be likely counted as as taxable income for federal purposes after December 31st, 2025.
Okay. Does every state have counselors to help understand student loans? And do you know if there's contact information for other states?
I'm not sure. I do not believe so. I think EdCap is sort of one of the first of its kind. But hopefully, maybe if you want to contact me directly, I can ask around though.
Okay. All right, we've got one more question, and then I will switch over to doing some polling, unless if folks have other questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. People keep calling me about my student loans. How do I know if it's a scam?
Typically, your servicer or the federal government will not be calling you. My recommendation would be to not answer the phone call and to contact your servicer directly. So you call your servicer at the number on their website just to make sure that you're not that it's not a scam.
Okay. And will you just repeat what you said about the teaching loan forgiveness program and what the potential problems are with pursuing teaching forgiveness?
Yeah, so for TLF, it only forgives up to $17,000 of your loans. So let's say someone has $50,000 in loans and they receive TLF. That's great. That knocks $17,000 off their loan balance, but they still have that remaining balance to pay off. And if they're working at a school, they're likely eligible for public service loan forgiveness. So they're going to have to completely start over fresh for public service loan forgiveness purposes and make 120 more qualifying payments for 10 years. And then after those 10 years, whatever is remaining after is forgiven. But you're losing 5 years that you potentially could have been accumulating qualifying payments for, and pushing yourself off further from complete loan forgiveness.
Great, thank you, Amalia. Okay, if anyone has any other final questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. What I am going to do is, if folks want to use the chat feature now, so not the Q&A feature, I do have 3 poll questions. We give these EdCap presentations quite a bit. We're always trying to improve them. So if folks need to jump off, feel free. I think I can do this in less than 5 minutes if people are able to stay on and answer some questions about how we did, the information that we covered. So the first question is, on a scale of 1 to 3, do you feel like the amount of information we covered was the right amount? So 1 is there was not enough info in this presentation. 2 is the right amount of info. And 3 is too much info. So feel free to put something in the chat. How do you feel about how much information we covered with this presentation? 1 is not enough, 2 is the right amount, and 3 is too much. Feel free to type that in the chat. Or if you end up in the Q&A box, that's fine. We'll get it. Okay, So it sounds like chat is disabled, so feel free to use in the Q&A box. That's fine. We will get it that way too. Thank you. I see these numbers coming in. Thank you all for this feedback. Please feel free to continue to put it in there. I'm going to switch to the second question. So overall, how do you feel about your understanding of student loans after this presentation? So this is again on a scale of 1 to 3. 1 is more confused than I started. 2 is my understanding is about the same. And 3, my understanding is better. So how do you feel about your understanding of student loans? 1 is you feel worse. 2 is it's about the same. 3 is you feel like you understand it better. Great, thank you. I see all these numbers coming in. Thank you, thank you. Feel free to keep putting them in. All right, last question. How confident are you in choosing and following up on a strategy after this presentation? So 1 is, I'm not sure what strategy I should pick or how to follow up on it. 2 is, I think I know what I should do, but I have questions or I need help. And 3 is, I know what I need to do and I feel like I can do it on my own. So how confident are you in choosing a strategy and following up on it? 1 is you're not sure and you don't know how to pursue it. 2 is you have an idea of what you should do, but you have questions or need help. And 3 is you know what you need to do and you feel like you can do it on your own. Great. Thank you all so much. So I think, unless we have any other questions that we didn't answer, let me check the Q&A here. All right, I think we got them all. So I will just remind everybody that I did answer a question in the chat, that we do meet with people. Amalia is a student loan counselor. We also have another of our student loan counselors, Crystal Pullen, who's on the webinar today as well. As part of the EdCap network, they can meet with people for free to talk through, questions that you have, what strategies you want to pursue, how to do it. I myself was a client of EdCap. They helped me get public service loan forgiveness, which is amazing. So please feel free to reach out, and then we will either be able to assist you or direct you to another EdCap agency that's part of New York State. And we will be sending out a recording and all of the materials to everyone. So thank you so much for everybody joining us today. I'm going to end the recording, and everyone have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.